All right. 3 dummies, 3 mics.
Yeah.
A couple of cameras. Let's roll, all right?
Tango 1 at the top, we are follow vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that to the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Okay, welcome to the Tango 1 podcast, episode 5. I'm Tony Smith, retired cop TAC team leader, and currently the owner and the founder of the garage gym and my new business, Tango 1 Solutions. I'm going to be joined today actually with a new co-host today. We got Coach Jimmy Mack, who we had on a couple episodes ago. We just loved how he ran with us, so he's going to be in here helping out today because our usual co-host, Casey Wright, is going to be our interviewee, okay, our guest on today's show. So Jimmy Mack, you guys probably heard of him, but he's a coach at ETS and a long-time legendary coach in the Windsor-Essex County area. He hates when I say that, but it's true. And our mission here on this podcast, though, is to challenge you week in, week out, and to guide you to create immediate action plans against your problems and weaknesses. Simply put, we want you to do more and be more and have fun doing it. So let's introduce today's guest. So Casey Wright, you guys hear me talk about him every week, but we're going to get way more into it. This guy's only 26 years old, but he's lived like a pretty crazy life, like in terms of like the kind of experience and things that he's gone through. So we're going to get into some of those. Casey, if you don't know, was a forest firefighter. They call that in the States a smoke jumpers, but Casey was quick to correct me that that's in the States where they're jumping out of the helicopters. Here they like land or rappel. We'll talk about that after, I guess. He's also a former university and OVFL quarterback, quite accomplished. He's got a couple MVP trophies under his belt in the OVFL, a few OFSA titles, and a long list of awards you'll be able to see in our notes. He's also a trainer here at the Garage Gym. He's kind of been taken over as the head trainer, leads our athlete division, our online division. He's also a West Side Barbell conjugate tactical coach, which is one of the few in Canada. He's got a long history of skiing the slopes and skiing on the water, which is like pretty another one of those qualities you just never realize about somebody until you see them flip over on a video camera and land on their feet. He's also survived one of the craziest wildlife stories I've ever heard of in person. So we're going to talk about a lot of those things today. So Casey, welcome to the show on the other seat. Normally Casey's at the end.
Yeah, it's different. I'm on the other side of the room today. The light's brighter over here.
Yeah. 4 inches difference, but I'm telling you, it's a world away.
So those of you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll notice Casey wore his collared shirt today. That's the guest shirt, the collared shirt.
Fancier today.
He's stepping it up. So today's episode, we're going to talk about life lessons that Casey's taken on through sports, and that'll probably like lead into all kinds of conversations between the three of these meatheads at the table today. We're going to talk about facing fear and overcoming them. We're going to talk about the smoke jumping or the forest firefighter stuff. And we're also going to, of course, get into health and fitness. So this podcast is about no one thing in particular. So it's going to go everywhere from business to health and fitness, and probably even talk a lot about first responders. Casey is currently an Amherstburg firefighter. That's one thing that I kind of omitted. And we're going to talk about how his health and fitness overplays into his everyday duties. So let's get rolling.
Yeah. Let's get started.
All right, so let's get right into this, man. You grew up north. You're here seeing my kids grow up. I just want to hear about how that's just a little bit different growing up, a little bit more country than even out here in the metropolis Amherstburg.
It's flatter here.
Yeah.
there's not much. From Sault Ste. Marie, Northern Ontario. The one thing there, we were, and it's not everybody around there, but we were a very active family. So growing up, my dad had us skiing at 3 years old. He was a ski instructor his whole life. He had us on the mountains when we were young. So my sister and I, we were picking up on these things a lot. My family was very outdoorsy. My grandfather and my mom's side of the family was always hunting and fishing. We had some fly-in fish camps. That was an amazing, cool experience as a kid to get to go do that throughout the day. So I was just kind of brought up in a little more outdoorsy area. We camped a lot, and then we have camps compared to what they call down south as a cottage.
Yeah.
There's two types of camps up north. There's one, the camp is like a cottage, and then camping is when you're in a tent. So it's a little bit different, but
a little bit. Let me
Yeah.
put an asterisk on that for people. Casey's family has this beautiful, what we would call cottage here, but he refers to it as a camp all the time to our staff. So we feel like he's going to like this like teepee on the water, but he's been going to this like beautiful place with a boat and a dock, and
it's
so
all the
yeah,
same.
quite
Different.
Quite different, that's for sure.
So yeah, so you grew up, you're on the water, you're out up north. Do you find like, so I always wonder, I'm not one who's into like, I've skied and I've done some, water skiing and that kind of thing, but nothing like what you do. And I'm watching you like you're basically doing like those hot dog tricks where you're hitting a ramp and flipping around and landing on your skis. Like, I don't know, do you find that learning and growing up like that, you're kind of like more apt to like, I watch you jump on the monkey bars downstairs in the gym, and you just want to jump from one monkey bar to another. Like, is that just something that becomes innate inside you, you think, as growing up?
I think so. I think I was always curious. Like, I was always that kind of, like, daredevilish, kind of, like, stunty kid. Like, I enjoyed doing stuff like that. I guess being, simple things like growing up, like, you have a trampoline, right? And I was always curious. I'd jump on that thing for 3 hours, because I want to be the first kid in front of my cousins to land a backflip. Right? And then it was stuff like that. Then it's like, all right, let's try that on skis now. Okay, let's try that on the water. Let's try it off a cliff. Let's try it out, doing things like that always kind of pushed myself to do. And, like, I think that falls into, like, the athleticism a little bit. And, you learn a lot about coordination, your balance, your stability when you can maneuver in the air doing things like that. And then also there's a lot of influence your friends can have on you.
The peer pressure is huge,
especially as you get older and drinks start happening and you do have some skills, people start pushing each other, and it becomes I guess fun, as I'd put it.
So we'll get Josh and the boys to throw up a video of you flipping around there. I know there's lots of people in the world that can do this, but I don't know any other than you. So I'm curious, like, I'm going to assume you don't have the Red Bull pit that you're falling in with all the foam blocks. Like,
no.
How many times are you able to, do you practice that and fail before you get it?
Not a lot. If you fail too many times, it's not a good outcome.
You end up in the hospital.
But I don't know. So I guess more particular, like if I were to stick to like the skiing idea of things, you kind of just, the time I learned to flip was, we'd be at a friend's like ski chalet. We'd build a jump into a bunch of powder, which is just a snow foam pit basically. Get pulled from a 4-wheeler, and first person to land it wins. So doing stuff like that, and you learn how to do it into the pool, then on a trampoline, and then off, like, so you don't just try to do it one day, you progress, but eventually then you just kind of see where it goes.
Do you still got it in the toolbox? Can you still do
yeah.
like a bat flip? Oh my God.
I still got it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He just posted this on Instagram, like in the winter before all this stuff happened. And I was like, what the fuck is that? I had no idea that tool in the toolbox. And, being a father of young boys, I'm always just kind of curious. Like, we just spent the last 2 months, doing the let's ride on 2 wheels thing. And just like, how do you get the progression from like, let's go down this hill and these 2 like pieces of wood to like, let's go down this hill, hit the ramp.
Yeah, jump
flip.
up in the air,
Like,
flip.
Curious to how that transition happens.
And there's a lot of resources now, like YouTube. You want to learn how to do stuff, and it's YouTube and being a little dumb.
Yeah.
Like seeing something that's interesting.
I got that
to
going
you
for me.
And something you want to learn, and if you got the balls to do it, then you can pick it up, hopefully. Or you realize you can't do it, and you just stop.
So you start with this up north, attitude, which is probably kind of why you're so like relaxed. And the first time we met Casey in here, like he kind of comes across like he's like this kid from California, and with this super chill mental mentality. He's just always relaxed. I really haven't seen him lose his cool very often. So you go from there to the city of Windsor, and I mean, you've talked about this with me a little bit, but like life's a little bit different, right? Like I know you were big on going home, even though it's such a long drive. How did you find like the anxiety, maybe not anxiety, or did you find anxiety just being in a bigger city as opposed to growing up in that relaxed and be able to escape? Like I know Sault Ste. Marie's not that much smaller than Windsor, but it has the escape, which
Yes.
Windsor doesn't have.
Yeah, that's one big difference. Is the Sault, and again, Sault's not a big city and all, but it has its kind of surrounding areas, right? You drive 30 minutes out of town, you're at a beach, you're at someone's camp, not cottage, you're at a camp, or you're camping, and there's like the Great Lakes, you're surrounded by the Great Lakes. It's just, there's that a bit of escape, and the city itself isn't too super packed. So when I came here, I came to Windsor 2012 for university for football, and just coming into it, it was a big change, right? There's a lot of big changes being in a bigger city. Some exciting because now you're downtown and there's a ton of stuff going on. You know, you're 19, there's more than one bar.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot going on, but it's moving parts, right? Like there's freeways and stuff that, you know, as dumb as that may sound, isn't like at home. So I don't like big crowds, sort of stuff like that. Like Costco's not my favorite place because there's just a lot, but the adjustment came pretty quickly. Like once I settled into this area and settled in with, you know, made some friends with guys on the team and through school, it's another small city. And then now kind of finding that perfect medium out in Amherstburg, which is, you know, a bit more of a smaller kind of county town. It has that same feel as home, which has been great.
So Jimmy Mack, why don't you tell us a little bit? You recruited Casey, right? When I hired Casey, so some background on people here. He came through Kiwi, Kieran Winter, and you know, was introduced to me. Actually, I've already met him through like a Lancers leadership camp that I ran, but I you know, met so many guys I didn't really put the name to the face until he walked into the door. But he was highly recommended from Joe DeMore, who was a friend of mine, who was a former Lancer coach. And then Jim, of course, was pumped when he heard that you were now working for us.
Yeah, kind of tie those two stories together. It's pretty funny because when you're recruiting kids, and I was recruiting Sault Ste. Marie, the entire area, and Casey's name came up as, you know, a potential quarterback. And in university, sometimes you're looking for the perfect sort of box to fit a position guy in. The quarterback you want to be
taller guy.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that you want the quarterback to be. 6'3" is the ideal. And then, you know, you hear that, okay, he's on the shorter side. But I remember it was in London the first time I saw you play live. And I remember driving up to Western Stadium and watch you play live. And it jumped off the page that your scrambling ability and your athleticism that you talked about and your ability to do, you know, obviously as a byproduct of being able to do flips and being creative with your body and stuff, that it jumped off the page that you were a very electric athlete who wasn't going to win the 100-meter either. Like sometimes you see these freaky athletic quarterbacks that can run all over the place and they're doing it as a byproduct of speed. You were doing it as a byproduct of your ability to control your body, knowing where you are in space, and just kind of being that guy that just was a little bit of a gunslinger, guy that was willing to take some chances. If you threw a pick, it didn't really seem to bother you that much, and you're just like, you like to play with fire a little bit, no pun intended. And it just jumped off the screen to me as somebody that, you know, this guy is just kind of a baller, and that's what I liked about him, and that's why I came back and said, you know what, we need to get this guy.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So throwing a pick. Let's talk about throwing a pick and not being messed up by it, because you've thrown a few picks here, you know, and so have I. Like we fumble here all the time. We talk about that in, like, you know, when you fail fast. That was something like recently we really talked about, is like your ability to fail fast, and then just, you know, come back on the offense again the next time around. So how has sports kind of like helped you to do that? To, you know, to let things roll off your back and then just focus on, again, being productive the next time you come back on the field?
I think sports is a great comparison. Like, I think throwing a pick is almost like a great analogy to failing at anything.
Yeah. No.
Right? Because it is, you know, usually you're in a game, it's a high stress environment. Something goes wrong, whether it's in your control or not, and then now you have to, for whatever reason, you're either going to sulk about it, be upset, and now ruin the next 5 plays, or you just kind of get over it quickly, hopefully talk about it, and then move on from it. So I think, I know playing, I had a lot of different coaching throughout my life in sports, right? And I had coaches early on that I'm very grateful for, guys like Tyler Hankinson and Mike Pratt, who were my OCs in junior and high school OVFL. And they were very, very calm guys. So we would go on. We had a very strong system with our team, right? So this guy does this guy does this. You basically just have to read the defense and throw where they're not, right? That's that was how I kind of succeeded with it, is I could read a defense well and play through that. But sometimes you don't see a hidden safety here, or the corner drops when you think his first movement was up forward. Different things that are out of your control you don't see. I'd be able to come off the sidelines. I'd tell my story what I saw. They'd tell me their story what they saw. We'd come to terms and move forward. So it kind of taught me early on, like, you can sit there and yell and scream all you want, but it already happened. Let's talk about it quickly, because we got to go out next series. Let's talk about it quickly. Let's figure out what happened. And now we know what their habits are. Now we can make a play out of that.
And I think the other thing too, from a leadership standpoint, which obviously the quarterback is the leader of the offense. When you throw an interception or a pick, everybody the quarterback threw the interception. Maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. Maybe something else happened that wasn't, like you said, in your control. But you have to go back to the sideline and almost take the brunt of that responsibility, even though potentially it wasn't your fault, because you are truly the leader of the team. So
100%. But then at the same, it's a team sport, right? So whether or not someone did run the wrong route, if you come off the sideline and Tony runs, a fade instead of stops at a hook, and I come screaming at him, well, next play he doesn't he doesn't want to ball out for me. Yeah. So if I come out and say hey man, that's my bad, but hey, this is what happened, this is what you have, he's probably, if he's a good guy, he's gonna be like, you're right, that was my bad. Now we move forward. Now he's gonna want to stick his neck out for me in the next play, right? As opposed to, I'm not jumping up for that, 50-50 ball, because this guy's kind of ticked me out.
Yeah, and all the parents listening to this, those are the intangibles. Those are the reasons you're looking to put your child into sports. I think too many get hooked into this, I want my kid to get a scholarship. And those are all great. Now, everybody wants their kid to go pro and get a scholarship, but I think the intangibles you're looking for is that exact statement. As a quarterback, you're the leader of the entire team, really. Mm-hmm. You're the face of that team. You mess up, even if it's not your mess up, the team messes up, it's your mess up. Mm. It succeeds, it's the team's success, right? And that's where we really talk about, and that's where playing sports really teaches you how to just interact and how to deal with situations, because the exact same thing happens here in business, and I'm sure it happens on the whether you're a teacher, a firefighter,
it'll happen everywhere, right? I'm sure it happens. It's the same. It's just you're on a different field, right? So I'm sure in policing or with SWAT team, if a guy does the wrong thing, you adapt to it, right? You talk about it after, when you're no longer in this high stress situation. Same on the fire ground. You're in a situation right now, right? Usually it's seconds matter in these instances. If I'm sitting there screaming at Jimmy because he did this instead of that, we're just wasting time. Mm-hmm. If we just move forward with it, maybe mention it. Now after, in the debrief, which on the football fields, on the sidelines at the end of the series, or halftime, whatever, you debrief then when you have time to talk about it, and there's not this situation in front of you that you just have to continue with.
Yeah, and I think too, and I have no experience as a police officer and no experience as a fireman, but one of the things, obviously those are two huge high stress situations, whether it's a tactical team or you're going into a burning building. I think that the ability to maintain some sort of composure and level-headedness to yourself in the high stress environment like that is difficult, and is something that requires some practice or some genetic predisposition to having that, which obviously you get that kind of chill California vibe going. I think that helps you in that realm.
Yeah, and that's where breathing is one of the biggest things. So whether you're in the middle of a 2,000 meter row or the execution of a warrant, or you're pulling somebody out of a burning vehicle, that is where it's very, very key. And you see people that, you laugh, but you see people get fired up, so fired up over these small situations, where if they have perspective and they're able to breathe, they're going to get through.
Which is hard to do. It's exciting times, right? And any of these situations, it's high stress time, right? And that's where I think I heard at Fire Academy, and it just goes to everything, it's just slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And it just I hear it more often than not now in all kind of aspects, but it's just it's so true, because if you slow it down in your mind, you're moving smoothly, you're not getting caught up on anything, and all of a sudden you're starting to pick up that speed.
Yeah, exactly. And all it takes is somebody to come by behind you if you're in the middle of like a crazy interval workout or in the middle of a football game or, a SWAT call, to pat you on the back and say, hey, look around and breathe. And all of a sudden you're good again, and you find that you can control your heart rate.
Yeah, the legendary John Wooden, who used to coach UCLA basketball for once, probably the greatest basketball coach of all time. He had a quote that he used to say is, be quick but never hurry. And, obviously you want to do things fast if you're entering a burning building, but you don't want to hurry to something where you're, not using the due process that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah, exactly. So every great leader starts as a great follower. So I know, Casey, you talk all the time about these people, so many people in your lives that have helped you, Jimmy being one of them. Hopefully this guy too. But you talk about great people who have helped you to kind of like, to broaden your horizons. And I really think that leadership's something that's found within. It's something that you're kind of like, it's a trait that's maybe built since childhood. It's not something you can just open a book and become a leader. But you can open a book or watch or listen and become a better leader. So let's talk about some of that. So what are like some of the things that you might have learned from, and I think people are always looking for like learning from the positive side of leadership. Yeah. You can learn a lot of what not to do. And like, let's talk about some of those. Like what's some of the things you've taken away, and some of the people, don't pat my back, go after some of the other people, and let's hear some of the things you might have learned to do or not do. If it's a not do, leave their name at it.
Yeah, definitely. But like one thing, like again, like bringing back to like high school sports and OVFL, which is Ontario varsity sports, I had a lot of good coaching, and in the way of like, one, they're highly educated coaches. Like Tom Annett was one of my head coaches through high school, who's like
amazing dude.
Ontario Canadian, actually the Canadian football kind of like got in the way of the spread offense system. He does seminars all over the place, and he's just one of those guys who, one, he led from his examples. Like I can remember in grade 9, he would be the guy, he'd come open up the school's weight room 3 times a week just to have those junior guys come in. He'd run them through his program, and like he was the guy who you just looked up to, and he was a beast. So you looked up to him, and he knew his stuff. And when you know your stuff and you can portray it properly, then you're going to listen and follow. And then through coaching throughout the years, offensive coordinators I had a lot who were super calm, chill guys who, when at the right time got pissed off, but for the most part were super level-headed. And that's, I think, what I learned the most from, were those guys who, were super chill. When things go wrong, it's already happened. Let's move past it. Let's look at this. Let's watch the film. Let's make sure we don't do it again. But there's no sense in freaking out. And then I've had, some aspects where I've had people freaking out, and you're like, I understand the situation, yeah, and you're mad, but it's not going to help us, and now we just got to delay a game. So it's like, and then so you learn like, wow, maybe I didn't see how calm these guys were before, but now I see it compared to this, and you're like, that's a huge, huge trait. And then also like just on the side of leaderships is leading from kind of like you talk about all the time, boots on the ground, or leading from the front. Guys, I've been in courses and stuff where the leader, walks by and says, hey, pick that up off the ground. And you're like, okay, whatever, I get it. I'm under you. I will do that. But then I've been on the same course, and the guy walks by and you see him reach down and pick that up and throw it out. That's a bigger impact, seeing him do that, because he shouldn't have to. That should be our job. And now the next time, I'm going to go try to run in front of him to pick that up before he does. So there's a big thing in leading from the front, by leading by example and doing it and showing someone properly, as opposed to do this, do that, respect me because I'm above you.
Yeah. Kind of thing. That's great. Even like, I know we've talked about a little bit, the Legacy book, with the All Blacks. Did you guys read that book? It's a fantastic book. If anybody gets an opportunity to read, it's called Legacy. And then they did a deep dive into the culture of the Australian All Blacks, which is a rugby team. And they used to use a term called leaders sweep the sheds. And at the end of every practice, it's all the captains that are responsible for sweeping everything up and making sure they clean everything properly. And they almost feel it's their duty and it's an honor, because they are serving the other people on the team by making sure everything's clean. So that's kind of...
That's a good example.
The like great leaders, because leaders aren't bosses really, are those people that are always looking for what they can do for their team rather than what they can have their team do for them. And I think that's a huge thing, and I think that's why you've excelled here at the Garage Gym with our team, and I think that's why Nikki excels and Steph excels, and like the culture, and it's the same kind of culture we're looking to grow. ETS's team is small, but that's the same culture we're looking to grow there, and that's exactly how it's going to start, is from within. And then that, like that banana peel story for whatever it was on the floor that you were talking about, it's basically like that guy bending over to pick it up was like, this is how we do it here. And that's setting the stage for the culture for everybody. So let's go into the exciting stuff. We'll come back to this a little bit, but we don't want to miss this part. So I'm gonna preface this a little bit. So I'm a huge outdoors guy and love watching Animal Planet, Discovery. I've had an encounter with a grizzly bear, a billy goat up on a mountain. I've had some crazy things, cross rivers with crocodiles. But this guy has the craziest animal story I've ever heard told in real life. And funny story behind this is that Casey and I, we first met, and he was quiet, especially at the start. And we're talking, and I'm like, oh, what's the tattoo about? And I don't want to ruin the story, but he goes on to tell me this story about this wildlife encounter. And I'm thinking, I watched this on Animal Planet. This motherfucker is lying to me.
Fuck, I'm just excited to hear it. I don't know the story at all.
He's making up the story. And then I find out, lo and behold, he was the person on Animal Planet. It was some actor portraying Casey Wright. Not as handsome, but some actor portraying him. And yeah, let's just hear, man. Let's hear this story. So set the stage. Where are you? A little bit. I want to hear it. You've never told it before.
I don't even know. Honestly, it's a story I don't really tell often. I kind of, this happened.
Is this a true story? Like an
This is
accident?
a 100% true story. Okay, so
brace yourself, Jimmy.
Yeah.
it was kind of going through quick fact overview. It was 2006. I was 12 years old, and the actual story is we were attacked by a wolf. And so backstory behind it is it's Labor Day weekend. Again, 12 years old. It was the day before grade 8. We were going up, my family, my mom, my sister, my cousin, 2 cousins, Jake and Sarah, and my Aunt Leslie. We're heading up to this place called Bathtub Island, or it's in Catherine's Cove, which is on Lake Superior, about 2.5 hours north of Sault Ste. Marie. So we were heading up there. This is a beautiful beach. It's kind of hidden. A lot of the locals know about it. The water's crystal clear. There's this nice spot that comes out to a little bit of a point. Reason it's called Bathtub Island. About 200 yards out, there's this rock, massive rock kind of island in the water. Now in this rock island, there's a small little concave at the bottom, and it fills with water from the waves crashing over it. And then obviously that heats up, and it's warmer water. So it looks kind of like a bathtub, right? Mm-hmm. So people, again, locals from all over kind of go there. It's a beautiful place to go for the day, have a picnic, hang out with friends, do whatever, right? Just an absolutely amazing spot. So that was our plan. Day before grade 8, day before my sister enters high school, we got together, we all got in the car and went out. So we go out to this beach. We have to park. In order to walk into this, it's a provincial park, so you park up in this kind of parkway. It's about a half hour from where we're actually going to set up camp. So that kind of comes in the story later. And we, grab our stuff, we walk up the beach to this point, and that's where we're set up for the day. So we're there for a picnic. We set up our spot right on the point of this. Again, 200 yards out is this rock island. We go out there, we swim, we jump off this rock, we're having fun. There's one other family there on this rock, but they're having a picnic, on that little island. So we come back for lunch, and now we're all sitting there getting nervous. I haven't told this story, I don't think, ever.
Take a breath. It's intense. I made it kind of light of it, but there's not, this is serious.
I got my elbows on the table. I can't wait to
we are, just kind of paint the picture. My cousin Jake and I are laying side by side, facing the water. Okay, so we're laying on our stomachs facing the water. We just had lunch. My mom, my sister, my aunt, and cousin Sarah, their head is towards us, facing us.
So it's all kids with your aunt and your mom.
Yeah.
Yes, they're facing back, head to head. my cousin and I, they're facing towards the woods behind us.
Yeah.
Right, so we're on a stretch of beach, maybe 50 yards long, and then behind that's all trees that run a few hundred yards out to the road. So we're sitting there. I'm to the left of my cousin, again facing the water, and looking to my left, I see this figure coming down the beach, and it looks like a dog at first. Okay, so I'm watching this black dog walk down the beach, and as it gets closer and closer, I'm kind of starting to clue in my mind, like, either this is a big fucking dog, or as it gets closer, I'm like, that's a wolf, like it's a timber wolf. So this thing's coming up, and it's getting closer, and all of a sudden it's walking right behind us. Okay, and I'm in a situation, and says you talk to people after, like, oh, why didn't you just boot it in the face and run?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, you're 12.
So I'm sitting there.
And had you guys being from up north and hanging on these, had you seen wolves in the wild before? Because that is rare to see
not
a
in the
wolf
wild. I've driven past, so we've gone on a lot of fishing trips. You see bears all the time. I think I had seen a wolf before on the side of the road or whatever, but not
Right.
not like
on
this.
all the trips I've been on, I've seen bears. I've seen a lot of wildlife, like out in the wildlife, but a wolf is not something you see. I've seen it on the side of the road only, but so keep going.
It is rare. And so now this thing's walking up behind us, and I'm the only one who spotted this thing. But I like, again, this was a long time ago, but from my memory of it is I remember, don't yell or say anything loud, because what if that
Makes you attack.
what will that spark? So this thing comes up behind us, and I'm watching this walk right behind my back. And again, I'm laying on my stomach, so is my cousin next to me, so where you are.
Yeah.
And I watch this thing walk behind us, and now it's standing facing the water right behind my cousin Jake. And, I'm looking at this thing from meter away, and it's just looking there like a proud animal. And then in a split second, it just like chomped down. So all of a sudden, it goes super quick, bites my cousin in the ankle. And I could still hear the chomp of
Jesus.
it biting its ankle, like just like a dog chewing on a bone.
It's crazy.
And so at this point, I get up to crawl and run away. Okay? I feel something on the back of my leg, like high up in my butt. Not in my butt, on my butt. of like a pressure on the back of my leg. So this is coming from my mom's story later. She's across from me where you are. She looks up, and this wolf had picked me up by the back of my leg and dragged me a few feet back towards the woods. And then it went to readjust its jaw or whatever, it let me go, and I ran.
Oh my God. So it was almost trying to drag you into the woods like a fucking alligator would drag somebody to the bottom of water?
Who knows? So it lets me go, and now my cousin and I run directly to the water. So again, some of this stuff is going to be different perspectives. Like my mom told me her side. I've heard everyone's side of it, so I'm piecing most of that together. So at this point, my cousin and I, we run into the water, and now our kind of mindset and goal is, what the fuck's going on? And, I wouldn't have swore, I was 12.
Yeah.
But we're wondering what's going on, but let's get to this island. So at this point, we're running in the water. Now my mom, she's trying to get everyone up and out. The wolf latches onto the back of her leg, and it bites her leg a few times. She's fighting it off. It eventually gets a hold of her hand, almost rips her finger off. And then they continue to fight, and everyone's running towards the water. So at this point, it lets go, and somehow, whether my mom's dragging it or lets go and it's kind of running back and forth between the chaos, we're all in the water. So in between that island I was talking about, that's about 200 yards out, and the beach, you're at about between knee and waist depth the whole walk out. So now we're all kind of scrambled, spread out in the water, and this wolf's just kind of trouncing up and down back towards people. It starts running at, my aunt, and then it gets excited over here and turns that way. Then it gets excited over here, and I remember one point it turned towards me again, and I was running, and I trip in the water and turn around, and I'm staring this thing right in the face. And I'm thinking, like,
this is nuts.
This is nuts. What's happening now? And learn later, if you stare an animal right in the face, it slows down for a second, which who knows if that helped or not. But I stop, and I'm sitting down in the water staring this thing in the eyes, and then my aunt whips it with a towel, and then it turns towards her. so that gave, again, now my cousin and I continue to this rock, okay? So like Ed mentioned earlier, there's another family having a picnic on this rock. I'm not 100% sure. I believe there was like 6 people there, right? And so they came out, the dads came out into the water. They had buckets and sticks, and they're trying to make themselves as big as they can because they see what's happening now.
Yeah.
And they're trying to scare this thing off. So now they're in the water helping us get to this rock and trying to scare this wolf off. At this point, it had made its way to my sister. So my sister is 14 at this time, and it eventually latches onto her arm. So it ends up getting her arm quite a bit, and my sister is fighting this thing off. So she's punching this thing, fighting it, and she is dragging this thing, battling it in the water. It ends up, either scratching or biting the side of her head, all this stuff, but she eventually fights this thing and drags it off into the water deep enough so it can no longer touch the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Once that happens, it gets off and kind of turns back, right? It has no footing, it's going back. So
slow this down for a second. Your whole family is now out in the water. Take a big breath. I can see you. I can see your chest is pumping. It's a pretty wild, like, no pun intended, wild story. So this whole scenario to where we're at, this has happened in a matter of minutes.
If that.
Yeah.
In a matter of
2
like
minutes maybe.
And so like the detail that you're able to remember and like you're worried about the story being jumbled, like that's like there's a lot going on, especially you're 12 years old and this is like so many years ago. And it's crazy the vividness of some of the memories that you do have.
I don't know what I ate for lunch yesterday. I'll tell you the shade of this thing's eyes. I'll tell you, like every detail about its fur. Like there's some things that just.
So some good people came to your assistance.
Yeah,
your
so
sister just thankfully gets out to some deeper water.
My sister beat this thing up like a boss.
And the thing runs back to the beach, or is it staying there?
And now it's still kind of jumping in and out of the water, but it's starting to head back to the beach, right? Now. Again, this part's not as clear as everything, but now we're all on this rock island. Okay, this family's with us. Now it's kind of assessing the situation. I remember being on this rock. At this point, I still don't really know that I was bit. And I'm seeing my sister come up, and I'm freaking out because her and my mom are bleeding. There's a lot going on. My cousin's been freaking out because his ankle's been bit. And then we're sitting there, and my mom's kind of sitting between the two of us, checking us over, making sure this and that. That's when she is like, "Are you okay?" Blah, blah, blah. And I remember looking back and seeing the side of my leg, and that with some pretty deep gashes in it. And then that's when I was like, "Oh, shit, I got bit." And so that's when I came to the realization that I had been bit. And then, now we're on this rock. This family's kind of attending to us. And so this is where we parked comes into it. So we're parked a half hour down the road.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And now this wolf is walking up and down the beach. It's going through our lunch. It's, ripping the bags apart. It's going through stuff. But it's pacing up and down this beach. And so we're kind of trapped. We don't know what to do. My aunt's wanting to walk through the water, try to make it to the car, but everyone's saying no to that. And we're there. I think afterwards we were there for, like 4 hours maybe on that rock, just kind of waiting.
And this wolf just stayed there.
And it'd just, it would be up in our stuff. It would pace down the beach, and then it would come back. And what eventually it happened, there'd be people showing up to this beach, to go for the day. So people would walk in through the tree line, and we would be, and everyone's screaming now, right? Like, get help, get help, get out of here. There's a wolf on the beach. Get out of here. Go get help. So then they'd see what's happening, and they would turn around and go. And so again, after a number of hours,
imagine how scary that run back to your car is
Yeah.
too. Like if you were just the people that like you see people out there screaming for help, and you see a wolf on the beach, and now you got to make it half an hour back.
Jesus.
Not to that would be a.
So eventually, park rangers made their way. The wolf had kind of been gone for a little bit, but obviously no one at this point risking
Yeah, it's like a fucking nightmare. You don't know if you should go and the thing's gonna come back.
Yeah.
And
And then park rangers came onto the beach and, you know, kind of waved us off the rock. And in the distance, I remember hearing gunshots, and they had found it and shot it, obviously. And then, you know, by the time we made our way out of the woods, there was, you know, ambulances, police, everyone there. And they took us to the Wawa Hospital.
Wow.
oh my God,
Such
that
an
is
intense
what
story.
a crazy story.
So people understand too. I know a lot of our listeners will probably come through the West Side Forum, and Canadians, we're not carrying guns at the beach. So I know like a lot of you guys are listening. Like, why should you shoot the thing? Well, it's just not something. It's like, you know, there's a lot of guns in Canada for hunters, but we don't really like take them to the beach with us. We don't carry them around. So, you know, firearms are harder to come by when.
And
Sometimes for the good, but
it's
also a
not
lot of
something
times
you,
for the
you
bad.
prep for. You know,
Right.
Yeah, going to the
everyone
beach.
who's up north, like, it was a very rare incident. And even now, once we learned about kind of the situation, so
Yeah, let's get into that.
kind of fill it out, was what had happened was this wolf was injured. So it had a fractured leg, it had a broken incisor, so one of its fangs had been missing. So what they assumed would happen, it, you know, was with a pack. It had probably, you know,
It's a week, so it got.
you know, it could have been,
kicked
they
out.
could have been attacking a moose or something. It got
Yeah.
booted in the face, broke its leg, and then packs move on, right? They leave this. Now, the weird situation with this was usually animals in this instant are not comfortable around humans, especially an injured animal. But what had happened is over time, because this wolf was kind of living up near the highways, is people are throwing stuff out of their cars. You know, at times, people might have been even feeding this thing, seeing it on the side of the road, stopping, throwing something at it, right? Which started to make it potentially comfortable to
Around people,
approach
yeah.
a group of people, right? So that was a part of it. We found out later that maybe an hour before us, this wolf had actually attacked a young girl earlier that day.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that part of the story.
So there was this was like our story was pretty insane, but this one was like almost like this young girl, I believe she was, I want to say between 2 and 4,
Oh my god.
was walking with her grandparents through the woods, and this wolf jumped out from the woods and grabbed this girl by the arm. And, you know, I don't know a lot about that side of about this story, but being a grandparent in that situation,
Holy
you
fuck.
know, that girl was obviously okay afterwards, like she was fine, but this wolf had already done that earlier this day. And then, you know, it's just crazy. It's
Jesus, that must have been the impetus for the friggin' Little Red Riding Hood story, the big bad wolf. Like
Yeah.
that friggin'.
So let's talk about like the after effects of this. Like you can see it in your body language right now. For those
Yeah.
of you on YouTube, I've heard Casey tell this story, but we asked him today to tell it in a little bit more detail than he probably normally tells it, and he doesn't tell it to too many people because he's been around here, and I'm sure a lot of people in the gym, who the 200 something people that know you very well, probably only a couple have heard this story. So we're talking PTSD type, you know, probably anxiety, fear. I know when I ran into the grizzly bear that, you know, I ran into a grizzly bear on a trail in BC. It stood up in front of me, ran into the woods. I can tell you that every single time I've gone on a hike since then, I feel that, you know, in that tightness in my chest. So you guys went through some, from what you've told me, some different kind of like therapy. So let's talk about like kind of like what you experience, what you feel even to this day, or the immediate after. Let's just get into that a little bit.
Yeah, so the first thing, like immediately after this, right, a few major things was like the fear of stuff was like huge. Like in the way of, if I was walking to a friend's place and a dog runs out from a backyard, like
Yeah.
heart stops. It would take a while to kind of calm down, and did some counseling. I remember in school I got put with this counselor, and her eyes matched the wolf's. And I could not. I had one session with her, and I was
Let's
just
name
like,
her.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I do not want to be in that room. So we had to kind of, I think because of how unique of a story it was, like its story, it had made the Globe and Mail. It had got a little bit of media traction because it was the first reported wolf attack in, I think, 100 years. like ever.
And I'm no bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, this is on the Animal Planet. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? When animals attack or something on
Yeah.
Animal Planet. Like, I watched
So-
this story.
So what had happened? We were contacted within the year actually by this company and for Animal Planet, and they had contacted us and they were saying we're doing this show for animal attack victims. Okay, and what it is basically it's a show that helps people through the terms of it, and we try to help you face your fears, okay, and try to help you get over this. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll fly you out. The host is Dave Salamone, so some people who people probably might know this guy. He's on Jimmy Kimmel all the
Yeah.
time. He's the guy who's on there with, he brings monkeys and lions and all this stuff into this. He was interested in it because he was a animal trainer and he was attacked by one of his lions.
Yeah.
Early on.
I
in
think
his
that's
career,
true, yeah.
right? And so like this guy's he goes out and into the wild and plays with lions. Like he's just one of those guys, but one of the most personal people I've ever been around. So we're contacted by the show. They offered to actually a year after this had happened, the week of it, we were contacted that they want to come to the zoo. They want to go to the site, go to Catherine's Cove or Bateau Island to shoot the area, to talk about what happened. And then following that, we're going to fly you guys out to Bowmanville, to the zoo, and we're going to do a reenactment of the show. So you'll have your actors, and we're going to go through it to create this TV show. But then with that, we're going to give you basically counseling within the show, and then we're going to introduce you to wolves. So we decide to do this, which I'm very grateful we did, because I think this was a giant
step forward.
At least success with me. Like I definitely gained a lot from it. I think everyone who did it, my mom, my sister, and I, who did it, really, progressed because of this. So I'll skip kind of the main stuff, and they came to the zoo. We shot this and that, and then they fly us to Bowmanville, which just outside Toronto. They bring us to the zoo, and now the premise of the show is we're in the zoo. We have trained wolves, and we're gonna go play with them. We're gonna put you in their cage, and you're gonna hang out with these wolves.
And you're not wearing like a steel outfit.
No.
No,
like
chainmail or
chainmail.
yeah.
Yeah, so they show us them from outside the cage. The first two were young, like babies. Not babies, because they're bigger than your average German Shepherd. But we're going to go in, and they get all this like first reaction on film. We're going to go in there, and they're on leashes at first, and you're just going to slowly approach them. So
How does that feel? Do you remember?
I remember being at this point, I think just because I understood the setting, I was more kind of excited than nervous, right? Like I'm here to play with, live wolves. Like I was kind of caught up in the excitement of it. I know it was, I'd say probably more difficult for my mom and sister.
How long ago was it after you got attacked? Did you go there?
1 year.
One year of the day.
Yeah.
We shot it the 1 year after this had happened. So again, I missed my first day of grade 10 football tryouts. No, grade 9 tryouts for it to go to this. So anyways, we go there, and I remember just being nervous but excited. Like again, I understood we're in a zoo. I'm naive. Things can't happen in a zoo. Now, obviously, they can. But I was like, we're okay. There's these trained wolves. They're on leashes. And as we got introduced to them, by the end of this day, like, I had them off their leashes. I'm running around playing with them like they're dogs. They're dogs that just smell worse is all. And later we're introduced to the mom, who's this giant white wolf. But yeah, like just remember playing with these things. Annie was the name of one of these wolves that I just bonded with a little bit. And it was just like, for me, it was such a relief to kind of face this. Again, I know I'm not going to go see one in the wild, but this trained wolf is like, this was a huge step for me in the way of like, face it. Face your fear, things, we came out the other side of it. And that for me was a huge, huge step forward, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think this is a big like lesson for everybody listening and watching here is like facing it, because I can tell you my biggest misstep in my PTSD and the things that I went through was not facing it. So I was always of the opinion and thought I was making the educated decision to just avoid all triggers. Like triggers for you being like might be dogs or the woods. For me, it was certain areas of the city or, TV shows. And I didn't face it. I stayed away from it. And the way it was described to me was like, if you do that, it's like trying to hold down a beach ball under the water.
Yeah,
eventually that thing's just going to pop up. So because, Casey, you dealt with this at, 12, 13, 14 years old, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like that is why you're able to, you're still going out in the woods. You're still going and doing all these things.
More than ever.
That made you who you are, because that's a big part of your livelihood. And so if you got a problem, you need to face it and, get some help. And you know what? You got help to do it. It wasn't just on your own.
Yeah, which I think was huge. And it wasn't something we looked after. And there was even after that, there was shows and stuff that had contacted us. And it was like, no, we're fine. Like, we've done it. We made this step, and it was a huge thing for us, and I'm extremely grateful that we had the opportunity to do it.
Now, you don't have any, it's a question, I guess. Do you have any
scars on my butt?
No, fears today of wolves that are greater than your fear of grizzly bears or alligators or something else?
I don't think so. I'd say no.
No?
No different than anyone else, I'd say at this point.
Yeah,
I think maybe even less. What are the chances that happens again?
Yeah.
Right? Even with anything. I remember being in Australia surfing and, people are concerned of sharks or things like that. I'm like, if I get attacked by a wolf and a shark in my life, it's good.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it.
So
but
that helped me.
I don't think that'd make me feel any better in the fucking if I was surfing off South Africa.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think more than anything, no. And then obviously I've had a lot of times now sleeping in the middle of nowhere and in the woods and with work, and those things never
crossed your mind.
Wow. My mind, no.
It's funny you're talking about getting with a grizzly bear. I was in BC same way, and there was a mutual friend that we went for a run together, and we were running through the trails, and then he just stopped me for a second, and 100 feet away there's a freaking giant brown bear on its hind legs like this, and my heart starts racing. This guy was as relaxed as anything. And you know why he was relaxed? Because he knew he was faster than me. He's like,
you don't have to outrun the bear.
Yeah, just outrun the slowest guy. Yeah. That's a fucking crazy story, man.
It is such an intense story.
That's a crazy story.
Let's take a minute. You guys top up your drinks. We're going to close this thing out soon. With that amazing story, I didn't get to read in our ad. I'm going to read that in right now. Axel Films is a production company. They provide creative strategies, powerful video marketing campaigns like the one you see on the Tango One podcast that was able to lure Casey Wright out of his hiding and tell this story again that he wouldn't want to tell since the Animal Network. But anyways, and they create video services for small and large companies alike, having worked with brands such as us at the Garage Gym and the Toronto Raptors. If you're motivated in business, then you know how important it is to put your thoughts and your ideas and your ideologies on film. These guys are the best. They'll help you towards your goals. They're all-in-one video production service. They offer everything in-house from strategy, concepts, writing, producing, capturing, editing your final branded video. They do a great job for us making snippets to produce through Instagram and social media. But they're just an all-in-one company, and most of all, they're great guys, local, born and raised, 519. Visit axelfilms.com to learn more and tell them that Tango One sent you. So yeah, let's close this thing out with just a few things. So
my heart rate's still up listening to that.
Yeah, it is. I'm telling you, that is it's great storytelling, but even greater just to see that you and your family you conquered it, man. You conquered it. You came out stronger on the other side. Hearing you say things like that is just uplifting to everybody, and seeing how happy-go-lucky and chilled out you are despite going through that. And a lot of people listening are probably, we talk about perspective. What did you go through, and why can't you get through it? What are you going through? Yes, you can get through this. And yes, you can get through that, and it's okay to feel anxiety. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel weird, but it's not okay not to go get help, right? So let's talk about that. So, you're 26 years old. You've gone through a lot of things in your life. We barely even touched on your firefighting, getting dropped off in helicopters in the middle of the woods to fight fires. But what would you, let's talk to the younger crowd. Like, what would you tell them to do to get to the point that you're at? You've traveled, you've just checked off so many things off your bucket list at 26. And that's one of the things I respect the most about you and your ability to, we hear so much, would he be a millennial or a Gen X? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm so old anymore. I don't even know what the difference is.
We hear so much of it. I think it's just that generation. But I'm done with that because I got Casey, I got Riley, and so many other, Vanessa, so many other, Johnny, in this same age group that are just they just impress me every day. Give some advice to the younger crowd on, how to become a leader, how to chase your dreams, how to make sure that, I think there's a fine line between traveling Australia, New Zealand, doing all these things, and also not moving forward in some other aspects of life towards your goals. And you've done a good job of that. So
I think just pack your time kind of with things you want to do. Like when I was, I think I've done a good job at not sitting stagnant for too long, right? Like when I graduated university, I finished football and I was still in school, but I was in this kind of slump as to, finding a new identity in the way of what now?
Yeah.
Right. I was a quarterback at university for 5 years. I was in sports my whole life prior to that. What's next? Right. And forest fire was one of those things that I always wanted to do. Never could throughout the summer seasons because of school, and not school, but more so, fall camp starts in August.
Yeah.
I can't be in the middle of nowhere when I need to be on the field. So it's, again, I think a lot of it has to do with, I'd say a bit of luck in the way of, when I graduated school, and a week or two after that, I got a call that I was hired with this crew for forest fire up in Cochrane, Ontario. But on my reading week, I went and did my schooling for forest fire in order to apply, right? So anytime I had time off, I want to do a course. So then now I do a season of forest fire, and in my off season, I was home for 2 weeks doing some odd jobs, and then I wanted to get into firefighting, structural firefighting, so I enrolled in Fire Academy. So I did that, and then that took me up into Christmas. And then at this point, I had booked a trip to Australia with my sister. That was supposed to be 3 weeks long, that I knew in my head would end up being 8 weeks. So then, had 2 weeks at home. Then I went to Australia, and then I went to New Zealand, back to Australia. And then are you coming back to another season of forest fire? Yes. So I booked my flights home to make it home in time, to have 1 week at home, I had to do a test, and then move up north. And then I did that, and then from there I'm finishing work, at the end of September. I need to find a job for the next week because I'm going to move to Windsor. So I think more than anything is just you want to do something, you don't have to wait till you finish something before you get started on something else. I think it was one thing, I knew that my end date for this is at the end of this month. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to wait till the 28th to start looking for the next job or start making calls. I'm going to, I remember I was having talks with Amherstburg Fire, and I was back and forth with HR with that. And we were on a fire in Chapleau where we're, the only way you can call is through satellite phone. You're in the middle of the woods camping for 8 days. We had to come out. We got flown out one day. We had to pick something up at base, and then we're getting flown out an hour earlier. That's when I made my call to the HR girl saying I'm not going to be able to make the orientation day because we're back in the air in another hour. But I made the call. They were able to make adjustments, luckily for me. And then, when I was available, now I have this laid out and I have something to move forward to, right? And even when I did first move here, before I found the gym, which luckily I ran into Kieran at the bar one night, who introduced me to, the idea of training here, I was just doing jobs. I was doing some construction jobs for friends, Then I was working at a daycare for, I was on the supply list for a daycare for 4 months or 5 months while I started interning here. And just like, if you want to do something, stop waiting till tomorrow to make that call, or just do it. Send an email, give someone a call. It doesn't matter, because all they're going to say is no, right? Or, yes, absolutely. Can you come in next week for an interview? It's like, just don't sit stagnant for too long. And I think that comes down with a bit of the, ADD, where it's like, I don't want to sit still. If I sit still for too long, I lose my mind. It's like, keep moving. Do something that you like. Find something that you like to do. And whether or not you're making money from it or not, if you're happy with it, it's better than sitting in the house sulking for whatever reason because you're bored or because you have nothing to do. There's always something to do. And honestly, there's always something to do with something you like. You don't have to settle for something you dislike doing because it's a paycheck. If you actually put in the work to find that whatever job it is, you can. Because what you like is different from someone else. Mm-hmm. So there's not a million people searching for that one job. But that might be the exact job you're looking for. And if you never look for it, then you're sitting in some office for the whole part of your life that you're just happy to get off Friday afternoon with another $1,000 in your pocket.
Yeah, I think what jumps out at me too is we talked a little bit about fear, and you are not scared, and maybe it's a byproduct of that wolf incident when you're 12 years old. You don't seem to be scared to take a risk, to not follow the prescribed path of going to university, get a job, get married, buy a house, get married, have kids, and follow that kind of progression. I'm willing to drop of a hat, go to Australia, come back, go firefighting, come back, go do something else. And that two things, lack of fear for just being your own dude, and lack of fear of judgment from other people saying, he's not following a traditional path. And I admire that, really, I do.
Yes, that was completely unscripted. I wasn't trying to lead him into but I'm so glad I went there. Like, take action. If there's anything that this, the Tango One Solutions is about, it's about taking action. And I think that's like, this lends to, employers not hiring based on resume. Because if it was a resume, Casey came here with no fitness certifications, just came here for a passion for working out, and he met our values. And we hired him, and we haven't looked back, and now we have a fantastic team member, a leader, and a friend, practically I'd say an uncle or a big brother. I'm not sure which one that would kick in for my kids, but that's exactly what you go for. And Jimmy, I'll say, I don't know if it's not fear or if it's courage, because I think that's what you gotta really understand is fear. But I think, it probably did cause you some anxiety to take these risks and chances, but courage to go forward. And I think that's exactly what you meant by that.
Yeah, totally.
So there's nothing wrong with being scared, guys. I was scared to fucking quit. I'm scared right now in the middle of the COVID situation that our gym might fail, but I'm still courageous enough to move forward, and you've been courageous enough to move forward in everything you've done, and I wish you the best of luck. I hope it's always here. But this is the longest anybody's ever been able to corral you. I'd like to take credit, but I think it's for a pretty blonde girl with a great attitude that might have you corralled, and I hope she stays here then forever, whatever it is. But we're so lucky to have you at the Garage Gym as part of the Tango One podcast, and just as a friend. So 26 years old, and you've brought a lot to my life, which I would not have thought I'd have from a guy your age, just inspiring me and keeping me making me a better leader and better person. So thank you. Great podcast, boys. Let's call it there.
That was
Cheers.
a great one. Oh my God. That was fantastic. Cheers. I had a lot of fun.
When animals attack.